Well, God is just such a good God to us. He takes such good care of us and makes sure that we are where we need to be when we need to be. Even on a day like today when we lose an hour of sleep, look how good God is to us. He gave us a nice cold rain to wake us up before we got into the church building, to be able to have a good worship together. That's just the God that we serve, isn't it? He is a wonderful blessing to us all. One of the classes that I really enjoyed as I went to college, believe it or not, I was not a stellar student. I was focused on what I wanted to do for my major. I was focusing on the ministry part of it, and I really didn't see the need for some of the other things to go along with that. But to get my education that I got, I had to take a lot of different kind of things that didn't really have a whole lot to do with the ministry that I was trying to go into. I had to take athletic courses to round off my education. I needed to take different kind of arts or courses or things like that. So I found ways to pad my GPA by taking classes that were not going to, I knew they weren't going to make a difference one way or the other. This is my little buddy here. My son has decided that he wants to also become a preacher. And so he is determined to get up on the stage with me and preach. So if you see him after services, that's what he's doing. He does it on a daily basis on his timeout chair. He stands up and he preaches to me every day about Jesus. So we're working on him early on, but he's got to remember that when Dad's up here, he doesn't get to preach. It's not his time, it's mine. So, and I'm kind of selfish with that. So anyway, so one of the classes that I took, I was looking around trying to find them in athletics stuff. I took theory of coaching basketball so that I could watch more basketball. And then I took bowling and advanced bowling so I could learn how to bowl like a professional bowler and get easy credits. And then I took a class called Art Appreciation. Because this class was a great class, there were no tests in Art Appreciation. The project that you had to do for Art Appreciation were three things. You had to show up. That was kind of a thing. You had to keep a journal, and you had to do an art project. Well, I didn't think I was much of an artist, but she said it doesn't matter what the art project was. She was going to give you a good grade on it if you just put effort into it. And I thought, this is my kind of class. But what this class did for me was that in this journal that she gave us, our job was every day to find art, something that had art in it. And so at first you think, well, that's really easy. In your day-to-day life, where do you find art? And for the first 60 days or so in the journal, it was really easy. But after a while, it started getting a little more challenging trying to find art and things until I started to look at construction. Until I started looking at buildings, especially older buildings, and the incredible stonemasonry work that's done into them, and the geometrics that are done, and the different carvings that are done. And I was just amazed by it. And it set inside of me this thing to really enjoy this concept of making things and doing things. And even today when I drive around, and that's one of the things I love about where we live, is I drive by these places that are older, and I look at them and I tell Nova, see that building right there? And it looks kind of run down or whatever. I say, there was a point when somebody built that brand new. And they thought that was the most incredible building ever when it was built. They started their company in that building. See that building right there? That was a schoolhouse for children that came in there for the very first class. And it had a new smell to it. And the designs that were in there were cutting edge, state of the art at that moment. And it was special. And I love that. Some of you all may watch some cable TV from time to time, and you may be familiar with some of these shows. These shows are ones that we can put on at any time, and it inspires us. We look at our house and we think, man, I wish I could do some of these things to my house. And I watch somebody else, and they're flipping, and they're fixing, and they're changing, and they're morphing these houses, and they're taking something that at one time somebody built brand new. They said, "This is my house." And they walked into it for the first time. And they said, "This is an incredible house. This is a brand new house." And years and years and years later, so many of these people take those houses that people look at and say, "There's no more value in those anymore," and they rejuvenate them and they bring back to life the beauty of a house. Our God is a God who is in the business of taking and rejuvenating us. We are the same concept, the same houses, and I'd like to say that we are ourselves under construction. For a time, only for it to start to fall apart. And things started going not the way that we thought that they would. And things that looked really good at the time have dated themselves. And we started to realize that maybe, just maybe, there could be something better. And for many of us, we have come in contact with Jesus Christ himself, and he has taken us and he said, "Let me work on you to make you this incredible being, to make you this incredible house." And it puts us under construction. So for the next couple weeks, we're going to talk about what it is for our character to be under construction. Romans 12, 1 and 2 says this, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind," your thoughts. "Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." This transformation is what we're talking about today, of controlling our thoughts. This transformation of our minds, of being able to decide what will and will not enter our minds and what we will and will not do with that. This is an all too familiar sight, if you live here in Council Bluffs, of our mall that is no longer a mall. The big pile of dirt that is over by my house now. The construction, the redoing of something that was known here for so long. There's so many of you all that grew up here in Council Bluffs, and you remember when they cleared that land for the first time and they built that mall. There's many of you all that spent years of your life working in that mall. There's several of you all that your children had all their pictures at Christmas time taken in that mall. How many of you all have trick-or-treated in that, what was a mall? How many things have you bought there and shopped there? How many meals did you sit with friends and eaten in that food court there? And at the time when it was made, you thought that it was right what it needed to be, only to find as it was going through its last stages, becoming more and more empty and less of a need for our community. And construction comes. And when construction comes, sometimes you have to do some extreme things to be able to change things around. There was somebody that had a vision for that area. They could see something bigger and better and more productive for our community than what was sitting there. And some people couldn't understand it, and some people didn't like it and don't like it. And there are others can see the incredible benefit of what is going to be. But to be able to do that, sometimes we have to strip away the things that do not belong there anymore. And God does that for us as well. God calls for us to take and to strip away the thoughts and the processes in our minds that do not help build what God is trying to build inside of us. And sometimes that can be painful, and it can be dirty work, and it can be dusty and rough on us. But we have to be able to see that there's something bigger and better that's getting ready to be. I love this quote: watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, for they become your habits. Watch your habits, because they become your character. Watch your character, because it becomes your destiny. I want you to think about that. It all starts with what we think, and it chain reacts all the way down to where we go. How we think about things helps determine on where we will be. I found this in an article on how to control your thoughts. The first step is to be aware and be prepared. You need to be aware of what your thoughts are and being prepared to deal with them. Secondly, you need to be able to name that thought. Call it out for what it is. If you have a thought in your mind that you don't like, call it out for what it is. If it's a thought that's not a godly thought, call it out for what it is. Name it. Own it. Then erase it and replace it. You do not have to hold on to a thought that is not a godly thought. That is your choice to do so. Oh, well, I just don't know why I think about what I think about. I don't have any control over that. I don't believe that's true. I believe as Christians that we get to choose, that we prepare ourselves so that whenever struggles come, whenever things come, temptations come, if we prepare our minds for that, that we have the ability to call it out for what it is. Call a spade, erase it and replace it, and do a reality check. Is what I'm thinking real? Is this reality? Is this what God really wants from me? Just because I think it, is it true? Present the moment and realize where you are and what's going on, and be mindful of what's triggering that thought. And remember that it's your choice to think on what you want to think about. As we build our character, as we talk about controlling our thoughts, these are steps to help us control our thoughts. All right. Our thoughts, attitudes, and actions reflect our relationship with God. Do you realize that? That the way that I act, the thoughts that I have, and the attitude that I have when I'm around anyone else or even with myself reflects the kind of relationship that I have with God at the moment. It's a true indicator of where you are spiritually. Does that mean that I don't have the right, or I don't have I'm a bad Christian if I think a bad thought? No, not at all. Remember, name it, replace it, change it. However, whenever I allow these thoughts to control my attitude, then I am giving up the power that I should be giving to God to something else. Colossians 3:2 says, those who live according to the flesh, their mind set on the fleshly desires. But those who live according to the Spirit, their minds set on spirit desires. The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. The mind governed by the flesh is hostile to God. It does not submit to God's law, nor can it do so. Those who are in the realm of the flesh cannot please God. Scriptures tell us so clearly that our thoughts control our actions. And we need to be able to control our thoughts by putting things into works, by reminding ourselves who we follow and the gifts that we've been given. So many times we talk about this construction. The whole key to our construction, even the key to the construction that's being done over at the mall, is the foundation. I'm always amazed that when they do a huge project like that, what happens is that you would think that they're just going to take the old metal and the old concrete away and just start building, but they don't. There's stories high full of dirt right now being piled and packed and getting ready. Because they understand that you cannot build a new building. You cannot build something beautiful and grand if you do not have a foundation to build it on. As Christians, our foundation is Jesus Christ. His gift of his life through his death on the cross. The gift of salvation, the gift of love and hope and eternity. This is our foundation that everything is built on. This is our focus. This is what we put our thoughts towards. And when we put our thoughts towards these things, incredible things start to build on top of it. We are called to be a forward-thinking people. Colossians 3:2 says, set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. God doesn't call for us to sit and to dwell on today. God does not call for us to sit and dwell on the things that could be wrong or that we can't fix. God says, look at things towards the future. Instead of staring at the things that are in the midst of you down here, look at godly things. Look at holy things. Don't focus on the earthly things because those are temporary. Those things will not last. If I spend all my time online watching the videos of things long past, I'll miss all the beauty of what is to come, and we need to realize that. 1 Peter 1:13-16 says, therefore, with minds that are alert and fully sober, set your hope on the grace to be brought to you when Jesus Christ is revealed at his coming. As obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance, but just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all you do, for it is written, be holy, because I am holy. He calls for us to have a sober mindset, to be able to really think about spiritual things. And as we think through those things, let it work through us so that we become better for him. To realize that I can be holy because he who lives in me is holy. We are called to have the same mindset as Christ. When we look at it, if we're going to build this incredible structure that Christ is going to be a part of, we need to have the same mindset. We can't go rogue. We can't change the blueprints on our own. We can't look at it and say, well, I think the pillar should go over here instead of over here. That concrete's not that necessary. We don't need that big of a beam, do we? We don't just change things around because it's of our whim. We have somebody who already has a plan set for us, who's already taken apart our oldness, and we are laying before him, letting him renew us, to rebuild us, to change us. One of the things I love about the shows that I was talking about earlier is some of them are really interesting, that they will take people and they will take them into this old broken down house, and they'll say, we have a vision. Let us walk you through what will be. Can you see the vision? And some can see it, and some can't. But those who have enough faith that can see the vision, that can see what will be, although it may cost much, reap the reward. Philippians 2:5-11 says, in your relationship with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in the very nature of God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in the appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place, and he gave him the name above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee shall bow, in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. And he says this is the very foundation, the very mindset that we should have. Being the same kind of a mindset of Jesus Christ, that we are not better than anyone else, that we don't have more problems or more abilities than anyone else. That instead of trying to prop ourselves up, that we take the role of a humble servant, looking to make the life of those of us around us better, to serve, to protect, and to love one another. These are the thoughts that we need to be having. How can I help make someone's life different today? How can I encourage my brother or sister that I'm sitting with today? How can I make a difference in their lives? How can I show them that I care? How can I serve someone I sit with today to make their life better? This is the mindset that Jesus continually had, that he was focused on, that he was driven towards, was to being able to help someone else. We are rebuilt through our mindset and this understanding of that. In Ephesians 4:21 through 24 says, when you heard about Christ and were taught in him according to the truth that is in Jesus, you were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by deceitful desires, and to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. We are to be made new in the attitudes of our minds. Controlling the thoughts in our minds changes our attitude. We no longer want to be that structure that's been there forever. Although it may have a great history, there are times whenever there's mold in the house, there's rot in the drywall, there's buckling in the boards of the floors. There are things, the wallpaper is curling up, and it's time for change. The change comes in our attitudes, in our mindsets, and our thoughts. When we make those changes, we're made new. We have that new smell again. We have that look that God gives to us. We are changed. Philippians 4:8 says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, what is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about those things. And he lays out a foundation for us on if we're going to control our thought process, this is what we think about. The world may sit and think about how there's things wrong with the world right now. The world may be thinking about how there are all these injustices in the world right now, or how there is suffering, or how there are things that they don't like, and how life is just not fair. How they could just try to get more, or how somebody's always holding them back. But that's not what we think about as Christians. We focus in like a laser on what's true and noble, right and pure. We think about things that are admirable. We think about what we can praise. We think about the excellent things that God has made for us. Seems like just a few weeks ago we had this weather that David was talking about, this cold, drabby weather, this negative 28-degree weather. And in the midst of that, there's something that tends to happen. We have those days when it starts to warm up a little bit and things start to thaw, only to freeze again. And so many times, your house is like mine, you'll see these sharp, pointy things starting to develop on the ends of your house. These icicles. And sometimes we even see them on our cars and different things like that, right? And it's interesting how those things form. They form by one drop of water at a time, freezing. And another drop running down and freezing. And another drop running down and freezing. And sometimes they're beautiful. Sometimes you can go out and you can look at them and they are clear and they shine and they're beautiful. Beautiful icicles. And you're amazed about how special they are. And there are other times when those same kind of icicles get just a little bit of dirt in them when they're forming. And we've seen those too, haven't we? The ones that the dirty water also freezes, drop after drop. The only difference is when you look out at there, it's got a murkiness to it. It's got a brownish haze to it, and you don't want it. I can always remember as a kid that when we see the icicles, we'd want to eat them. We want to grab them and break them off and eat them like popsicles. But I've always found I never had the desire to eat the brown ones. Crazy thing, it is not chocolate. They're gross. So too is our character. Our character is formed by one thought after another thought, after another action, after another response on how we treat life. And when we have a thought and a mindset of Christ, those drip after drip are pure, they're clear, and they're holy. And as they begin to freeze, they become into something beautiful and something desirable and something wanted and respected and loved. But when we take those same kind of circumstances and we allow our character to be infiltrated with less than desirable thoughts, it's like that light brown water starting to freeze into those icicles. Drop after drop, they freeze just the same. You're still building a character, but the character that you build is not desirable by anyone. It's not wanted by anyone. It's not respected and loved. It's not admired. And what ends up happening is that the people around it want to knock it down and let it melt because nobody wants it around. What kind of character are we wanting to build as a church? What kind of character are we wanting to show those in our community as individuals? Do we want to be one that shines and is beautiful, that is a true reflection of what God has done for us in our lives? How God has transformed us into something beautiful and new? If we want that, then it's in our thoughts. And we need to be able to control them and feed the positive things in our mindset. Or do we want to be that dirty sickle that nobody wants to have a part of? What are we showing today? What are you showing your children today? What are you showing your coworkers and your spouse today? What do they see in you with your character? You have a choice. If you don't like what you see when you self-examine right now, you don't have to keep it. God says that we are under construction. We are being made new through Jesus Christ. That we don't have to stay into something that we don't want to be. We have the ability to knock that one off and to feed it something new. To change our thought process and our mindset so that when people see us as we are forming our character, they see the beauty that God saw in you. They see the value that God has for you, that He would give His Son, Jesus Christ, to build everything to make who you are meant to be. Are you who you want to be today? Or is it time for you to start over? Is today the day whenever you want to reboot that character? It's going to cost you. You're going to have to let some things get knocked down that you liked for a long time. Some of the things that you've been anchored onto, that you've known that is your safety net, God's going to call for you to let go. You're just going to have to trust that Jesus Christ is a good enough foundation to build something even better. You're just going to have to trust that God has a vision for you that far exceeds anything that you thought or tried to build on your own. Do you want that today? God offers that to you today. There may be some in here today that have not ever given Christ their life. They've never even started with the most basic of foundation. We want to offer that to you through baptism, through making a commitment to Christ. There are many of us who have done that, and we have built these incredible structures only to find out that in the midst of it we have outdated ourselves because we kind of took over, and it's time for us to renew ourselves again. And maybe this morning, you just need a prayer this morning to help reboot you, to get you restarted under your construction. Maybe today's the day that you put out the construction tape. You remind yourself that you are still being built into what God wants you to be. You're not perfect, neither am I. But God has a vision for us. And us controlling our thoughts is just one of the ways that our character goes under construction. That we become better than where we were yesterday and closer to what we hope to be tomorrow. If we can help you in any way this morning, would you allow us to do that as we stand and as we sing?